In the previous part of this middle section of Chapter 5, we saw self-consciousness bringing for its scholarly preoccupations into the life of the world. We all thought out once nae plan o' life, but it came to grief on the necessities it encountered there. Here it comes on the scene for a second time, but this time with a plan, the law of the Hert. The situation at the outset. What necessity in truth is to self-consciousness is for its new form, wherein self-consciousness is to itself as necessity. Self-consciousness kens the universal, what is common straight off, or it kens that it has the law within itself. To indicate its natures internal to consciousness, it's called the law of the Hert. This form, the second, valuing wish and necessity, is for itself a singular being, as afore, but it is richer in its vocation, in that this counts for it as necessary or common. Owre agin this Hert stands reality, for the law at first is only for itself in the Hert, no yet realized, and so to something other than the concept or reason is. This other is thereby characterized as a reality that is opposed to what is to be realized, that is, the contradiction with the law and individuality. 2. The universal. The reality is on the hand a law by which the singular individual is holding down, a violent order of the world that contradicts the law of the Hert, and on the t'other hand a humanity suffering under it that does not follow the law of the Hert, but is subject to an alien necessity. This reality that appears facing the current form of consciousness is, seen in a clear light, nothing other nor the previous divided relationship of the individual and his or her truth, the relationship to an atrocious necessity by which it is smothered. For us, as observers then, the previous moment stands in contrast to the new form, because having emerged for it, the moment it came for is necessary for it. To it, however, it kides as something at hand, while it has no consciousness about its origin, and to it the essential is mere to be the negative again this positive in itself. 3. The singular individual. This individual is directed at owre, the necessity that contradicts the law of the Hert and the suffering it causes. In this, it's no longer the carelessness of the preceding form that only sought after its own whigmaleries, but it has the seriousness of a loftier purpose that seeks its satisfaction in vaunting its own excellence and in bringing about the welfare of humanity. What it realizes is itself the law, and hence its desire is at the same time common to our Herts. Both gang together for it, its desire, the lawful, and the realization of the law of common humanity, working out its own desire. For ben itself, individuality and necessity are immediately ein. The law is the law of the Hert. Individuality is no yet dislodged for its place, and the unity of both has not yet come into place through the mediating movement of the moments, through discipline. The realization of the rudderless creature counts as the presentation of excellence and the realization of the welfare of humanity. The dialectic sterts. The individual again the universal. Introduction. The opposed law that contrasts with the law of the Hert is divided for the Hert and freely for itself. Mankind, who answers to this law, does not live in the fortunate unity of the law with the Hert, but either in a dreadful separation and suffering, or at least in want of enjoying itself and obeying the law, and without consciousness of its own excellence in our step in it. Because that official divine and human order is divided through the Hert, it is to this Hert a semblance that should tine the poor in reality that is still joined to it. It may by chance agree as to its content with the law of the Hert, and then the Hert can lay it alone. But it is not the pure lawfulness as such that is at stake for it, but that the Hert has consciousness of itself in it, that it satisfies itself in the matter. when, though, the content of common necessity doesn't agree with the Hert, then the necessity according to its content is nothing in itself, and has to give way to the law of the Hert. 5. The dialectic of the universal. So, the individual brings about the law of his Hert. It becomes the law of the land, and the desire becomes a reality that is lawful through and through. In this making it real, though, it has fled from him. It is now the universal poor, for whilk this Hert is indifferent, say that the individual no longer finds his own order as he proposed it in the law of the land. Hence, through this, the realization of his law, he doesn't make his law, but while it is really his all along, but he thinks it's foreign, what he really brings about is his own involvement in the real order, and this not only as foreign, but as a superior enemy power. Through his deeds he places himself in, or rather, as the universal element of existing reality. His very deed, according to what it means, is supposed to have the worth of a universal order, but thereby he's won free for his own persel. He waxes as universality and wanes as particularity, for whilk he purifies himself. He who only wants to ken universality in the form of its immediate front desk doesn't ken himself in this free universality, while he in fact belongs to it, for it's his own doing. Hence, this deed has the one meaning of contradicting the universal order, for his own deed needs must be the deed of his own particular Hert, no free universal reality, and at the same time he has recognized reality in his deed, for then the action means asserting its nature as free reality, the whilk means recognizing reality as its essence. The individual, through the very concept of his deed, has delineated more nearly the way in whilk the real universality to whilk he made himself belong turns back again him. His deed as reality belongs to the universal, but the content is his own individuality. He wants to maintain himself as the singularity, standing aside for the universal. It isn't only definite law whose establishment is at stake, but the immediate unity of the particular Hert with the commonweal is the thought erected into law and supposed to count as such. The universal is that in whose laws ilka Hert has to see itself reflected back, but only the Hert of this individual has its reality in his deed, whilk to him holds aloft his own self-image or embodies his own whimsy. It should count immediately as universal, which means it is in truth something particular and has only the form of universality. Its particular content is supposed to count straight off the bat as universal. Hence, others do not find in this content the law of their Herts, but rather that brought about by another chiel. They, just as meikle, turn themselves again the reality what his Hert laid down. Thus the individual finds, as at first, only the stony law. Now the Herts of men stand again his own best intentions, and so are they to be loathed. Because this consciousness at the aff kens universality only as immediate and the necessity as a necessity for the Hert, the nature of it has already been brought to pass is unkent to it. It doesn't ken that as existing, it is in truth the universal already, wherein the particularity of consciousness will contrast itself to what has been done in order to get on with its own life, instead of attaining this its being, it attains the alienation of itself. That which this chiel doesn't ken, however, is no longer a deed necessity, but necessity animated by universal individuality. He took this divine and human order that he found in operation for a deed reality in whilk not only his own self, to which he clings as a Hert again the world, but the others too, we belong to the order, didn't ken their selves either, but he finds the order instead animated by the consciousness of all, and as the law of all Herts. He finds out that reality is an animated order, even by the fact that it realizes the law of his Hert, for this means nothing other nor that individuality becomes objective as common to all, wherein he, nonetheless, didn't see as self. Facts, dialectic or the particular. What emerges for the experience or this shape of consciousness as the truth contradicts what it is for itself. What it is for itself, though, has itself the form of absolute universality as shape. It is the law of the Hert that is immediately in with self-consciousness. At the same time, the settled and living order is also its own essence and product. It produces nothing other nor order. It is as real in immediate unity with self-consciousness. In this way, this self-consciousness belongs to a twofold and self-opposed essentiality, self-contradictory and inwardly broken down. The law of this Hert is only that in which self-consciousness recognizes itself, but the universally valid order has become, through the realization of that law, his own essence and his own reality to him. What contradicts itself in his consciousness is for him both in the form of the essence and of his own reality. While he speaks about this moment of his self-consciousness and therein the outcome of his experience, he shows himself as this inversion of himself, as the madness of consciousness for which its essence is immediately inessential, its reality immediately unreal. The madness thus cannot be kept up, that in principle something essential be taken for inessential, something unreal for real, so that what for yin is essential or real isn't say for another, and the consciousness of reality and unreality, or the essential and inessential, should fall apart. Again, something is in the common way real and essential for consciousness, but isn't say for me. I thus say in my consciousness or its nothingness, because I am at the same time the common consciousness, as real consciousness or its reality, and while these are both nailed down and in place, this is a unity which is fully owre. In this, though, only an object for consciousness is gain raj, no consciousness as such. In the outcome of the experience that has its result here, consciousness is, however, aware of itself as in its law, as this reality, and at the same time, while the very same essence, the same reality is estranged from it, it is, as absolute self-consciousness, as reality a per se, aware of its own unreality, or both sides count to him, according to their contradiction immediately as his essence, that thus in its very nature is mad. The impassioned heartbeat for the welfare of humankind thus passes out into the raving or a crazy self-aggrandizement. It turns into the fury of consciousness to preserve itself against its own destruction by means of casting the incoherence that it itself is out ayont itself. It strains itself to look on and express that incoherence as that of another. This consciousness speaks to the universal order as an invention of fanatical priests, carousing despots and their lackeys, who compensate themselves for their humiliation by humiliation and repression of them below them. It expresses the manipulated incoherence of the law of the Hert and its ill-stored fortune that walks to the nameless poverty of betrayed humanity. Consciousness expresses in its craziness here individuality as what renders it delirate and incoherent, but from it an answering individuality. But the Hert, or the immediate singular consciousness, will and universal being, is itself deranging and incoherent. Its activity is only the production of what this contradiction becomes to its consciousness, for the truth to him is the law of the Hert, or merely intended, that hasn't, like the established order, bide at the heat of the day, but has rather, as it turns out here, foundered. This is law that should be implemented. Herein the law as reality, as valid order, is the goal and essence to him. Yet just as much as reality, i.e. the law as the valid order, immediately rather nugatory to him. Just as his own reality, he himself, as singular consciousness, is essence to himself, but it is his goal to impose it as existing. Rather, to him is his self as non-singular immediately the essence, or purpose as law, e'en as a universal, which it should be for his consciousness. This, his concept, becomes something objective through his activity. He, on the contrary, proves it as unreal, and the unreality as his reality. So it is no chance an alien individuality that's deranged and deranging, but this very Hert for all sides, and intrinsically so. Stephen, the warslin of the twa. Whilst though the immediate universal individuality is deranged and deranging, nevertheless, this universal order, because it's the law of owre, which is to say derangement, is itself intrinsically deranged, as the raving madness said. Hence the order proves itself the law of owre, by the opposition which the law of Hert finds with the others. The established laws are defended against the law of an individual, because they are nae unconscious to indeed necessity, but a common mental property and substance, in which them for it is real, live as individuals and place their confidence. Again they also complain about this order, as though to reaffirm the inner law and retain the conceit of the Hert against that order. In fact, they thus depend on it, along with their Hert, as their very being. And gin this order be ta'en fae them, or they place themselves forth it, they tie nothing. Whilst the very reality and power of the public order consists in this public order kides as the uniform, animated being, and individuality as its form. Een say, this order is tapsultiri. For public order is a reality in this, that it is the law of owre, that all individuals immediately are this universality. This reality is reality only of individuality being for itself, or yon of the Hert. The consciousness that sets up the law of the Hert proves opposition fairer, because it contradicts the equally singular laws of their Herts, and these in their opposition to any other, nor set up and put into force their law. Hence, the universal that is at hand is only a universal opposition, strachel, o agin, wherein ilkain makes his own individuality count, but at the same time does not thrive, because he experiences the like opposition and is stymied by the others, as they by him. What looks like public order is this universal choven, wherein ilk brings to fruition what he can, makes use of justice, again the singularity of others, and establishes his own, that equally disappears through the efforts of the others. This public order is the way of the world, the illusion of an enduring course, that were universality merely held after, and the content of it which is rather the essential of the stipulation of singularities and their dissolution. Echt. Conclusion. Let us consider both sides of the universal order, een against the other. The last universality has for its content the restless universality for which whimsy or singularity is law, the real is unreal, and the unreal real. At the same time, though, it is the side of the reality of order, for the being for self or individuality belongs to it. The other side is the universal as placid being, and this only as an inner, that's no of nathan, but yet is no reality, and which can only become real through the setting aside of individuality, which has laid claim to reality for itself. This new form of consciousness is virtue, to become itself in the law, in the true and good in themselves, not only as essence, but to ken individuality as deranged and deranging, and hence to hate sacrifice the singularity of consciousness.